Welcome back to the Wizard Weekly, where we talk about everything in gaming. You could make the argument that Nintendo already has a ring of scams going on with them charging full price for a bunch of games almost a decade years old, like Super Mario Odyssey on Nintendo Switch for $60 godforsaken dollars. At least that's what a lot of people paid this holiday season for a bunch of first-party Nintendo games. And unfortunately, if you got scammed once, there's been a good amount of people in the past couple of months that's been scammed twice in a row. When the second scam coming from them, once they opened up their new game and tried to find their cartridge, they instead found some black plastic and googly eyes. I'm not making this shit up. Here I have 3 Reddit posts of 3 players being victim of the same arts and crafts maniac scam going on here. And apparently all 3 of these victims bought sealed copies of these Nintendo games only to be, greeted with tragedy staring back at them. Literally. Now, like I said, since we're coming off a holiday season, these reports have ramped up a lot in the past couple of weeks, but apparently this googly-eyed scam goes back all the way up to June 2023. So whether this is like the same culprit, just getting a bunch of different copies of these games and just taking them out and somehow resealing them, just putting the plastic on with a little bit of heat, or maybe the original scammer got away with all this back in 2023, and then all the people that got victimized with this back then saw this method and was like, maybe I should try to put some googly eyes and get some free games out of these Nintendo cartridges. I have no idea, but if you're wondering why googly eyes and this little piece of plastic is the method of madness that these people are deciding to do, is because apparently when you shake a Nintendo game like a brand new sealed copy, there's supposed to be like a rattle, so there's a cartridge inside there, and apparently this googly eye with the pupil inside gives that rattle effect. And then I guess the black plastic is supposed to be for any peekers that like to look inside the game. I don't even know why you would buy a game that's been tampered with with the seal, but apparently these were sealed as well. Anyways, the black plastic is maybe there for like the store employees who might look inside the game and just get a quick peek and see the black, and maybe they'll think that there's a cartridge inside. It's just a really weird occurrence to see, and I'm surprised that people are getting away with this by resealing these games back up with the plastic somehow, and that not being noticed. And from what I'm reading, most of these games are victims of the store-bought versions of these games, so you can just attest that to the shady return policy that a lot of these stores like Walmart and Target have, not really paying attention too much. But there has been apparently some victims that have bought these games online and have gotten these googly-eyed things going on here. So it's just been a really weird thing. Now luckily most of these people have their receipts, so they get reimbursed. They'll get the game that they actually want without the googly eye. So I doubt if you run into this issue, it's going to be too much of a bad thing as long as you keep the receipt. But again, the fact that this is happening, it really sucks. So this is my fair warning to anyone out there buying any physical cartridges out there to be mindful of this. I wouldn't even say be careful, because if you were to open up the freaking plastic in the store, that would just make you look a little suspect. And the last thing that we need is a bunch of grown adults getting misdemeanors opening up games in the freaking video game aisle on Target. So that's just unfortunate. Moving on, in the last decade, we've seen PC gaming in a major way hit its handheld era, with a bunch of really dope manufacturers, giving orgasms to our fingertips, like, Steam with its Steam Deck, the Asus ROG Allies out there, and now Lenovo is releasing a sequel to the Lenovo Legion with Lenovo Legion Go S. And what makes this, handheld special, not only because it's, an amazing piece of portable hardware, but it's also gonna have a version that's gonna be the first third-party system with SteamOS automatically installed. If you don't know, SteamOS is the operating system automatically installed with all Steam decks, and if you use big screen mode on Steam for like a big screen, or you connect your PC to a TV, it's that operating system. It's not my favorite, but it's functional and it's really easy to use, so it's really cool. And I guess with the Steam Deck's popularity, the OS has just been really widespread, and it's caused a lot of people to want to use that simple OS. So I guess that's why Valve is outsourcing this operating system to these third-party manufacturers. Now with this Legion Go S, there's also going to be a second version that has Windows 11 automatically installed, so that's definitely the version to go for if you want more customization on your system. And the Legion Go S is going to have an 8-inch 120Hz OLED display with a 1920 by 1200 resolution, and it's going to target a May 2025 release at $499, so a little over the original Steam Deck price, low under the Steam Deck OLED price, so it's right well, I can see it's more close to OLED. It's $500. And at that price point, I think this is a really good buy to have if you want an OLED display at the best price and you don't want to pay $550. But I still think that the $399 original Steam Deck is what's the best option that we have right now, and it's going to carry you for a while if you want to play like 1 or 2 games at 256 gigs of storage, even though that's really child's play for any PC gamer. Either way, I'm loving the variety that we're having for handheld gaming nowadays. Like I said, we already have Steam doing their thing with the Steam Deck and that widespread success. We have PlayStation kind of going into the lane. You can really argue that's just a second screen for your PS5, but even still, it's a step in the right direction, I guess. Xbox is rumored to have some sort of thing cooking up for their version of a handheld. Obviously Nintendo Switch with Nintendo Switch 2 coming out soon. It's a really renaissance era for handheld gaming, and I'm loving it because that's what I grew up with, and then teenage years it was gone and then it came back, so I'm happy for that. And moving on, in my opinion, Call of Duty has lost its identity to, its core franchise to what it originally meant back in, the obvious modern warfare, World at War days of the game's era. But it's still essentially a boots on the ground first-person shooter that makes a lot of money in its current form factor, and it also takes a lot of revenue to create these games, apparently, because some new court documents were revealed that shows the production costs of some of the last few Call of Duty games that we've had. Apparently, Patrick Kelly, who was Activision's current head of creative for the Call of Duty franchise, said that between 2015 and 2020, Call of Duty cost between $450 million and $700 million to make. Now, while that is just the most insane, egregious number that I've ever seen, even more than we've already come to expect for Call of Duty, revenue costs, this is accounting for like the development cycle of the game after it was released, like all the like DLCs and obviously like licensing to get freaking Nicki Minaj in the game. I'm sure that wasn't cheap. Like, this is including all of those costs, like, in all these games' lifespan. But apparently Black Ops 3, which is now considered a classic because it came out 10 freaking years ago, which is insane, that cost $450 million. Modern Warfare 2019, the remake, cost $640 million in its development cycle, and then Black Ops Cold War costs over $700 million in its life cycle. Mind-boggling. Now, unfortunately, it's been a norm for a bunch of, AAA studios to have these insane costs. The Last of Us Part 1, the remake, cost $220 million to make. Even Spider-Man 2, which you could barely even tell the difference between that game and the original, that game cost $300 million to make for some reason. I don't even want to mention Concord because, that studio got shut down, and I don't even want to think about all the hard work that went into that game just to, reach no avail. But that was in hundreds of millions of dollars apparently. So, we've seen a bunch of, eggs being put into these games baskets that they hope can break even, but a lot of times now it's not, which is why, the AAA industry is starting to crash, and we're seeing a whole shift in, this whole side of gaming to where, indie games and AA games are starting to take over. But I just think that this shows, once again, that nothing about the way that the industry is being ran is sustainable at all, because, games are only getting more expensive to make, and they're taking even longer to make since, we're having these new goals that we're trying to reach with graphics and whatnot. People don't even really care about. They just want to have fun. They just want to turn on the game and forget about life. That's all that we want. But trying to spoon feed us these new graphics and new innovation that isn't really real innovation, it's just, them trying to justify all these hundreds of millions of dollars that they're paying to create these games. It's not gonna last, and it's obviously taking its toll because we're seeing all these shutdowns. We're seeing all of these games losing money, and franchises just dying left and right. So obviously how this pans out in the future is going to be in the detriment of the AAA games industry current model. And lastly for today, the Consumer Electronics Show is going on over in Las Vegas, Nevada, and NVIDIA, they showcased their new era of RTX gaming with the RTX 5090, 5080, and 5070, with the base obvious big graphics card with the 5090 retailing at $1999, partying like it's $1999. Now, the more budget-friendly budget-friendly graphics card of this generation with the 5080 is going to retail at $1,000, and then the 5070 is going to retail at $749, which is going to be announced at a later date in February. Both the 5090 and 5080 are going to be available for pre-order later this month, and I just gotta say, man, this is not for me. Now, the big thing with this showcase is the new Blackwell architecture technology that's gonna be good for a lot of AI generated content. Like Jensen Huang, he had this whole keynote to where he showed an entire AI generated segment. Like this whole thing here is AI generated using, you know, the new DLSS generation, DLSS 4. And I gotta admit, just like my guy's new insane sparkly rattlesnake jacket, everything about this, you know, just looks really shiny and sick. But like you'd expect, the 50 series trumps the 40 series in almost every way, mostly due to, like I said, it's DLSS frame generation. Like the big thing that they said that they're generating like up to 3 times more frames with, you know, the help of AI, and you know, it's Blackwell technology. So we're seeing games here like Cyberpunk 2027 with already amazing FPS over 100, now seeing FPS at 237 with DLSS 4 and, you know, full ray tracing turned on, which is crazy. But like, what's wrong with 100? Like that's a dream for me. And on top of the already steep price tag, the new 5090, it needs a PSU requirement of 1,000 watts. So, you know, if your freaking power supply isn't, you know, chugging out as much energy as it needs to be, you're definitely going to be seeing an enhancement not only on the price you pay for a new power supply, but also on your, you know, electronic bill. Each new graphics card having the new GDDR7 memory, with the 5090 having 32 gigs of the memory, and then the 5080, 5070 Ti, and the 5070 all having 16 gigs of that memory. PCI Gen 5, DisplayPort 2.1 connectors, and drive that displays up to 8K and 165 Hz. It's, you know, state-of-the-art, top-of-the-line as you would expect for that price point. But again, I don't think there's any, you know, rational human being that would upgrade to a 5090 if you already have like a 4090. Like, I mean, the more, you know, realistic, I would say, like, upgrade if you have like maybe a 1650 legacy card or like a 1060, maybe you would get like the 5070 for $749. Like that, I would say is a worthy upgrade, since there is a lot of gamers that still, you know, game on legacy cards that are, you know, being, you know, out and not supported anymore. But other than that, man, the 50 series is really just for those that are for YouTubers that want to exploit, you know, the view count that, you know, surrounds all these things so that they can, like, you know, review it and all that shit. But for regular human beings that can barely, you know, take advantage of all these new features, like all these AI generated features, it's not for me. And I just think that we're really reaching a point where, you know, graphics overall is just, you know, starting to stagnate. Obviously we do have room for innovation, and like we have here the AI generated scene, and, you know, having graphics that look just more realistic, nothing groundbreaking, because we already have games like freaking Body Cam that literally looks like GoPro footage. You know, that game was insane to look at, and we're gonna have more games like that in the future. But again, trying to justify $2,000 now for something like that is, you know, pretty insane. I have no doubt that this thing is going to be scalped, you know, pre-order sold out the first day, like always with all, you know, Nvidia cards. But I just think that for the regular consumer, this is not a must get. Like, I don't see myself owning a 50 series anytime soon at all. And that's all I got for today, man. If you enjoyed, leave a like on the video, subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next video.